The stars twinkled like tiny diamonds in the vast, endless expanse of space. For centuries, humanity had looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. They dreamed of meeting other intelligent beings, of forging alliances with civilizations beyond their own. But no one ever imagined it would happen like this. No one could have prepared for what was about to unfold. It began on a cold Tuesday morning, just as Alex Carter was finishing his shift at the International Space Observatory near Cape Canaveral. The facility buzzed with activity as scientists analyzed data streaming in from probes scattered across the solar system. Alex had spent most of the night poring over readings from a recently discovered anomaly near Jupiter, a strange energy signature that didn't match anything recorded before. He scribbled notes onto a clipboard while sipping lukewarm coffee, his mind racing with possibilities. At first, he thought it might be some kind of natural phenomenon, perhaps an undiscovered comet or asteroid emitting unusual radiation, but something about the pattern felt off, almost artificial. As he stared at the glowing monitor, a chill ran down his spine. Whatever it wasn't behaving like any celestial object he'd ever studied. Before he could dive deeper into the mystery, alarms blared through the observatory. Red lights flashed along the walls, casting eerie shadows across the room. Technicians scrambled to their stations, shouting orders over the noise. Alex froze, clutching his coffee mug tightly as panic spread through the air. "What's going on?" he asked, turning to one of his colleagues, a young woman named Emily. "I don't know," she shouted back, her voice trembling. "Something just entered our solar system." Alex rushed to the main control panel where images from Earth's deep space telescopes were being displayed. What he saw made his blood run cold. A fleet of massive ships, dozens of them, was approaching Earth. They weren't human-made. Their sleek obsidian surfaces shimmered with an otherworldly glow, and their shapes defied conventional engineering. Each vessel was larger than any aircraft carrier, bristling with weapons that glinted menacingly under the light of the distant sun. Who are they?" Alex whispered, his voice barely audible over the chaos around him. No one answered. Everyone in the room was too stunned to speak. The ships moved with terrifying precision, forming a perfect formation around Earth's orbit. Within minutes, they blocked out the stars, casting entire continents into shadow. It was as if the planet itself was being smothered by an invisible hand. Then came the message. A low-frequency transmission echoed through every communication device on Earth. At first it sounded like static, but soon words emerged. Deep, guttural, sounds that resonated in the minds of everyone who heard them. The language was alien, yet somehow understandable. A translation program kicked in automatically, converting the strange tones into English. "Attention, inhabitants of this world," the voice boomed. "You stand before the Kryn Dominion, rulers of countless galaxies. Your species has been deemed primitive and unworthy of independent existence. You will kneel before us, or you will perish." The room fell silent. Even the alarms seemed to fade into the background as the weight of the message sank in. Alex felt his legs go weak, and he collapsed into a nearby chair. His thoughts raced. Was this real? Had humanity finally encountered extraterrestrial life, only to face extinction? Across the globe, people reacted in different ways. Some screamed in terror, others prayed, and many simply stared at the sky in disbelief. Governments convened emergency meetings, scrambling to formulate a response. Military forces were put on high alert, though everyone knew humanity's outdated technology stood little chance against such advanced invaders. Meanwhile, Rachel Monroe, Alex's wife, was sitting in her office at the United Nations Space Council, headquarters in New York City, when the news broke. Her phone buzzed incessantly as calls poured in from world leaders, military officials, and scientists desperate for answers. Rachel was used to dealing with crises. She had spent years negotiating international space treaties, but nothing could have prepared her for this. She turned on the TV, watching live footage of the alien fleet hovering ominously above Earth. Reporters spoke frantically, speculating about the Kryn's intentions. Some claimed the aliens wanted resources, others believed they sought to enslave humanity. But one thing was clear: The Kryn meant business. Rachel's heart ached as she thought of Alex. She picked up her phone and dialed his number, praying he would answer. After several tense seconds, he finally picked up. "Alex," she said, her voice shaking. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," he replied, though his tone betrayed his fear. "But I don't think we're going to be for long." Rachel swallowed hard, forcing herself to stay calm. "Listen, I need you to get to safety. Get out of there and find somewhere secure. I'll figure out what to do next." "There's nowhere safe," Alex said bitterly. "They're everywhere." He was right. The Kryn ships had positioned themselves strategically, cutting off escape routes and disabling satellites. Communication networks faltered, plunging parts of the world into chaos. Power grids flickered and transportation systems ground to a halt. Humanity was completely vulnerable. Determined not to give up, Rachel hung up and immediately called an emergency session of the UN Security Council. Leaders from every nation gathered virtually, their faces pale with shock. Rachel took charge, her years of experience kicking in despite the overwhelming circumstances. "We can't let fear paralyze us," she told the group firmly. "We need to act fast. If these Kryn think we're just going to roll over and die, then they've underestimated us." Her words sparked a fierce debate. Some argued for surrender, believing it might spare humanity from total annihilation. Others insisted on fighting back no matter how hopeless the odds. Tensions flared, and it seemed like the council might collapse under the pressure. But Rachel refused to let that happen. She reminded everyone of humanity's resilience, the way they had survived wars, plagues, and natural disasters throughout history. "We've faced extinction-level threats before," she said, "and we've always found a way to endure. We can do it again." Inspired by her determination, the council agreed to pool their resources and develop a coordinated response. Meanwhile, Rachel reached out to Liam Dawson, a former Marine turned private security contractor. Known for his tactical brilliance and fearless leadership, Liam had been quietly building a network of resistance fighters in anticipation of just such a scenario. When Rachel explained the situation, Liam didn't hesitate. "Tell me what you need me to do," he said simply. "I need you to organize whatever forces you can muster," Rachel replied. "We're going to hit them hard and show them we won't go down without a fight." As the hours ticked by, humanity braced itself for the inevitable. The Kryn gave no further warnings, no explanations. They simply waited, their ships looming like dark clouds ready to unleash a storm. Alex watched from the observatory, feeling utterly powerless. He wished he could do more, but what could one man possibly achieve against an empire that spanned galaxies? Little did he know, his role in the coming conflict would prove far greater than he ever imagined. For now, however, all he could do was wait and hope that humanity's courage would be enough to save them. And so the stage was set. The Kryn Dominion had arrived, offering humanity two choices: kneel or die. But deep within the hearts of ordinary men and women, a spark of defiance burned brightly. It was a spark that would ignite a fire, one capable of challenging even the mightiest empire in the universe. The days following the Kryn's arrival felt like a nightmare that wouldn't end. Humanity scrambled to prepare for the worst, but no amount of planning could fully shield them from the overwhelming power of the alien invaders. Earth's leaders convened endless meetings, trying to devise strategies to counter the Kryn's superior technology, but every idea seemed futile against the Empire's sheer might. The clock was ticking, and the sense of impending doom grew heavier with each passing hour. Alex Carter returned to his apartment in Florida after being evacuated from the observatory. He sat on the edge of his couch, staring blankly at the TV screen as news anchors reported live updates about the Kryn fleet. The images were horrifying. Entire cities plunged into darkness as the alien ships blocked sunlight, military bases rendered useless by mysterious energy fields, and civilians fleeing in panic. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was teetering on the brink of extinction. His phone buzzed again. It was Rachel calling. He hesitated before answering, unsure if he wanted to hear more bad news When he finally picked up, her voice came through, steady but strained. "Alex, listen carefully," she said. "I need your help." "My help?" he asked, surprised. "What can I possibly do? I'm just an astrophysicist." "You're more than that," Rachel replied firmly. "You've been studying their ships, analyzing their movements. You understand things most people don't. That makes you valuable right now." Alex sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "Even if I am useful, what difference will it make? Their technology is light years ahead of ours. We're outmatched." "That doesn't mean we give up," Rachel shot back. "We have scientists, engineers, soldiers, all working together. If we pool our knowledge, maybe we can find a way to fight back." Her words stirred something inside him, a flicker of hope buried beneath layers of despair. For the first time since the Kryn's arrival, Alex felt a spark of determination. Maybe there was still a chance, however slim, to turn the tide. Rachel instructed him to meet her at a secure facility outside Washington, D.C., where a team of experts had gathered to brainstorm solutions. On the way there, Alex drove past abandoned streets littered with debris. People huddled in doorways, clutching whatever belongings they could carry. The once bustling highways were eerily empty, save for occasional convoys of military vehicles, speeding toward unknown destinations. It was a grim reminder of how quickly life as they knew it had unraveled. When Alex arrived at the facility, he was greeted by a group of individuals who looked as exhausted as he felt. Among them was Sarah Bennett, a sharp-witted engineer known for her work on satellite systems. She introduced herself with a firm handshake and a no-nonsense attitude. "We don't have much time," Sarah said, leading Alex to a conference room, filled with diagrams, blueprints, and laptops displaying streams of data. "If we're going to stand a chance, we need to think outside the box." For hours, the team debated ideas, tossing around concepts that ranged from brilliant to borderline insane. Some suggested hacking into the Kryn's communication systems. Others proposed using EMPs to disable their ships. But none of these plans addressed the core problem. The Kryn's shields made them nearly invincible. Any attack would be useless unless they found a way to penetrate those defenses. That's when Alex remembered something unusual about the energy signature he'd detected near Jupiter. He pulled up the data on one of the computers and pointed it out to the group. "This anomaly, it's similar to the kind of energy readings we've seen coming from the Kryn ships," he explained. "But there's a slight variation. A weakness, maybe." Sarah leaned closer, her eyes narrowing as she studied the graphs. "You think we can exploit this?" "It's worth a shot," Alex replied. "If we can replicate this frequency and amplify it, we might be able to disrupt their shields long enough to hit them with conventional weapons." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. It was a risky plan, requiring precision timing and resources they barely had. But it was also the first glimmer of hope they'd had in days. Sarah immediately got to work. Sketch. 大学英语写作要求使用简单句和基础词汇，请允许我调整复杂度并继续完成这段内容。Sarah immediately started working on the idea. She gathered materials from old satellites and began building a prototype weapon. The team worked nonstop, fueled by adrenaline and desperation. Outside, the world continued to crumble. News reports showed more cities falling under the Kryn's control. People were losing hope. During a break, Alex stepped outside to clear his mind. He looked up at the sky, now darkened by the massive alien ships. He thought about Rachel and wondered how she was holding up. Her voice during their last call had sounded so determined, but he knew she must be carrying a heavy burden. Leading the resistance wasn't easy, especially when failure meant the end of humanity. Back inside, Sarah called Alex over. "Take a look at this," she said, pointing to a small device on the table. It was crude, held together with wires and duct tape, but it hummed with potential. "This is our best shot," she said. "It won't take down an entire ship, but it might disable one of their smaller vessels, enough to buy us some time." Alex nodded. "Let's test it." Testing the weapon required getting close to the Kryn fleet, an almost suicidal mission. They needed someone skilled enough to navigate enemy territory without getting caught. That's when Rachel contacted Liam Dawson, a former Marine turned guerrilla fighter. He agreed to lead the operation, bringing along a small team of volunteers. The plan was simple yet dangerous. They would sneak onto a Kryn mining facility located on Mars, which served as a supply hub for the fleet. Once inside, they would plant the device and trigger it remotely. If successful, the explosion would create a ripple effect, temporarily disabling nearby ships. Before leaving, Liam met with Alex and Sarah to go over the details. "This thing better work," he said, holding up the makeshift weapon, "because if it doesn't, we're all dead." "It'll work," Sarah assured him, though her voice wavered slightly. "Just make sure you get it close enough to their systems." As Liam and his team prepared for departure, Alex felt a mix of dread and admiration. These men and women were risking everything to give humanity a fighting chance. He wished he could join them, but his expertise was needed elsewhere. Hours later, the team launched from a hidden base on the moon. Their spacecraft, patched together from salvaged parts, blended seamlessly with the rocky landscape. As they approached Mars, tension filled the cabin. Everyone knew the odds were against them, but they pressed on anyway. Reaching the mining facility proved harder than expected. The Kryn had set up tight security with patrols sweeping the perimeter and automated turrets guarding key entry points. Liam guided his team through narrow tunnels, avoiding detection at every turn. Inside, they encountered more challenges. Locked doors, surveillance cameras, and hostile drones. Despite the obstacles, they managed to reach the central control room. There, Liam planted the device while his teammates kept watch. Just as they finished, alarms blared throughout the facility. They had been discovered. "Move!" Liam shouted, leading the retreat. Bullets whizzed past them as they ran, narrowly dodging blasts from Kryn weapons. One by one, members of the team fell behind, sacrificing themselves to ensure the mission's success. By the time they reached the extraction point, only half the team remained. Alex and Sarah watched anxiously from Earth, waiting for confirmation that the device had worked. Finally, a signal came through. A bright flash lit up Mars' surface, followed by silence. The plan had succeeded. For the first time, humanity had struck a blow against the Kryn, but the cost had been devastating. Half of Liam's team didn't make it back, including Sarah, who stayed behind to manually trigger the device when the remote failed. When Alex heard the news, he sank to his knees, overwhelmed by grief. Sarah's sacrifice weighed heavily on him, but he knew she had given humanity a lifeline. Now it was up to them to seize the opportunity she had created. Outside, the battle raged on. The Kryn retaliated with brutal force, launching attacks on Earth's remaining strongholds. Cities burned and millions perished. Yet amidst the chaos, a new resolve emerged. The resistance fighters, inspired by Sarah's bravery and Liam's leadership, vowed to keep fighting. Humanity had taken its first step toward survival, but the road ahead would be long and fraught with danger. The victory on Mars was short-lived. Though the resistance had managed to disable part of the Kryn's mining operation, the Empire struck back with devastating force. Earth became a battlefield, its skies filled with streaks of fire as alien ships unleashed wave after wave of attacks. Cities crumbled under relentless bombardment, and millions of lives were lost in the chaos. The air grew thick with smoke, and the ground shook from explosions that echoed for miles. Humanity's morale plummeted, and many began to wonder if fighting back was even worth it. Alex Carter felt the weight of despair pressing down on him. He hadn't slept in days, his mind consumed by guilt over Sarah's death. Her sacrifice haunted him, replaying in his thoughts like a broken record. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, the determination in her eyes as she stayed behind to ensure the mission's success. She had given everything for humanity's chance at survival, and now Alex felt responsible for honoring her memory. Rachel Monroe shared his burden, though she carried it differently. As the head of the United Nations Space Council's emergency response team, she worked tirelessly to keep global leaders united. But unity was harder to maintain than ever. The losses were mounting, and fear was spreading faster than any weapon. Some nations wanted to surrender, believing that kneeling before the Kryn might spare what little remained of their populations. Others refused to give up, arguing that submission would only lead to slavery or worse. Amidst this turmoil, Rachel discovered something that shattered her trust in one of her closest allies, Senator Gregory Hayes. A veteran politician known for his calm demeanor and diplomatic skills, Hayes had been instrumental in rallying support for the resistance. But Rachel stumbled upon encrypted messages between him and an unknown contact during a routine security sweep. At first, she thought it was a misunderstanding, but as she dug deeper, the truth became undeniable. Hayes had been secretly negotiating with the Kryn. Rachel's hands trembled as she read the transcripts. Hayes promised to deliver key military secrets in exchange for leniency toward his country once the Kryn took full control of Earth. In return, the Kryn assured him a position of authority in their new order, a puppet ruler overseeing a conquered humanity. The betrayal cut deep, not just because Hayes was a trusted colleague, but because it exposed the cracks forming within humanity's fragile alliance. Rachel knew she couldn't ignore this. If word got out that a high-ranking official had betrayed them, it could destroy what little hope remained. People needed leaders they could believe in, especially now. But exposing Hayes came with risks. It might spark panic, division, or even mutiny among the resistance forces. On the other hand, keeping quiet felt like complicity, and Rachel wasn't willing to let that happen. She decided to confront Hayes directly. Late at night, she called him to her office under the pretense of discussing strategy updates. When he arrived, his usual confident smile faltered as he noticed the tension in her expression. "Gregory," Rachel began, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. "I need you to explain something." Hayes frowned. "What is it, Rachel? We don't have time for games." Rachel slid the printed transcripts across the desk. Hayes froze as his eyes scanned the pages. His face turned pale, and for a moment he said nothing. Then slowly he looked up at her. "You shouldn't have seen this," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "I shouldn't have?" Rachel snapped, slamming her palms on the desk. "You're selling us out to them. How could you do this?" Hayes leaned back in his chair, trying to regain composure. "It's not what you think," he said, though his tone lacked conviction. "I'm doing what's best for my people. Fighting is pointless. We can't win against them. This way, we save lives." "Save lives?" Rachel shouted, her anger boiling over. "Do you really believe they'll show mercy? They've already killed billions. They won't stop until there's nothing left." Hayes avoided her gaze, staring instead at the floor. "Maybe," he admitted. "But I had to try. What choice did I have?" "You had a choice," Rachel replied coldly. "You chose cowardice." The room fell silent. Rachel took a deep breath, forcing herself to think clearly. She couldn't let emotion cloud her judgment. Betrayal was painful, but she needed to decide what to do next, and quickly. After a long pause, she spoke again. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to help me fix this." Hayes blinked in surprise. "How?" "You'll use your connection with the Kryn to feed them false information," Rachel explained. "Mislead them about our plans, our weaknesses. Make them think we're weaker or stronger than we actually are. Whatever it takes to buy us more time." "And if I refuse?" Hayes asked, though his voice wavered. "Then I'll expose you," Rachel said without hesitation. "The world will know exactly who betrayed them. And trust me, Gregory, you don't want that." For a moment, Hayes seemed ready to argue, but then he slumped in his seat, defeated. "Fine," he muttered. "I'll do it." Rachel nodded, though her stomach churned with unease. Using Hayes as a double agent was risky, but she didn't see another option. Humanity needed every advantage it could get, no matter how small. Meanwhile, Alex threw himself into his work, channeling his grief into action. With Sarah gone, he partnered with other engineers to refine the prototype weapon she had helped design. The device had proven effective against the Kryn shields, but it was still too bulky and unreliable for widespread use. They needed something smaller, faster, and easier to deploy. Working alongside a young technician named Mia Torres, Alex spent countless hours tweaking the design. Mia was brilliant, with a knack for problem-solving that reminded him of Sarah. Together, they experimented with different materials and configurations, testing each version in simulated environments. Progress was slow, but every improvement brought them closer to creating a tool that could turn the tide. One evening, as they pored over blueprints late into the night, Mia broke the silence. "Do you think we can really win this?" she asked, her voice tinged with doubt. Alex hesitated before answering. "I don't know," he admitted, "but we have to try, for Sarah, for everyone who's counting on us." Mia nodded, her resolve hardening. "Then let's make sure this works." While Alex and Mia labored in the lab, Liam Dawson led guerrilla operations across Earth. His team had regrouped after the Mars mission, recruiting new members from among the survivors. They targeted Kryn supply lines, sabotaging equipment, and disrupting communications wherever possible. Each strike was small but significant, chipping away at the Empire's dominance. Liam's leadership inspired those around him. He never sugarcoated the dangers or promised easy victories. Instead, he spoke honestly about the sacrifices required and the importance of standing together. His words resonated with people desperate for hope. One night, after a successful ambush on a Kryn convoy, Liam stood atop a hill overlooking the burning wreckage below. Flames illuminated his weary face as he addressed his team. "We're not just fighting for ourselves," he said, his voice carrying over the crackling fire. "We're fighting for everyone who's lost someone, to show them that their deaths weren't in vain. We're fighting for a future where no one has to kneel to anyone." His team cheered, their spirits lifted despite the horrors surrounding them. For the first time in weeks, they felt a glimmer of hope. Back at the UN headquarters, Rachel coordinated efforts to distribute the improved weapons developed by Alex and Mia. She reached out to resistance cells worldwide, ensuring they received the tools and training needed to fight effectively. It was a monumental task requiring patience, diplomacy, and sheer determination. But Rachel refused to give up. As she worked late into the night, she often thought of Alex. She missed him dearly, wishing she could be by his side during these dark times. Yet she knew they both had roles to play, and hers was to keep humanity united. So she pressed on, fueled by the belief that their combined efforts might yet save the species. Humanity was battered and bruised, teetering on the edge of collapse. But amidst the ashes of destruction, a stubborn flame of defiance burned brightly. People fought not just for survival, but for dignity, for the right to stand tall in the face of tyranny. And though the road ahead remained treacherous, they clung to the hope that their sacrifices would pave the way for a brighter tomorrow. The Kryn Dominion showed no mercy. Their attacks grew more brutal, targeting not just military installations but also civilian infrastructure. Farms were burned to the ground, leaving fields barren and crops destroyed. Rivers and reservoirs were poisoned, cutting off access to clean water for millions. Starvation spread like wildfire, and disease followed close behind. Hospitals overflowed with the sick and injured, their staff working around the clock with dwindling supplies. The once blue skies of Earth were now choked with smoke and ash, a grim reminder of humanity's desperate struggle for survival. Alex Carter watched the news reports from his lab, his heart sinking with each update. The images of starving children and displaced families weighed heavily on him. He couldn't shake the feeling that no matter how hard they worked, it wasn't enough. The weapon he and Mia had been developing was still incomplete, and time was running out. Every delay meant more lives lost, more suffering. Yet Alex forced himself to focus, knowing that giving up wasn't an option, not while there was still a chance to fight back. Mia Torres shared his determination. She rarely spoke about her own fears, instead channeling her energy into perfecting the prototype. Together, they tested new materials, adjusted frequencies, and refined the design. The weapon was smaller now, compact enough to be carried by a single soldier, but it still needed to be more reliable. Each failure felt like a punch to the gut, but they refused to let frustration get the better of them. "We're close," Mia said one night as they reviewed data from their latest test. Her voice was tired but steady. "We just need a little more time." Time is something we don't have, Alex replied, rubbing his temples. But you're right, we can't stop now. Their breakthrough came unexpectedly. During a routine simulation, the device emitted a pulse that briefly disrupted all electronic systems in the lab. At first, Alex panicked, thinking they had caused irreversible damage. But then he realized what had happened. The weapon wasn't just capable of disabling Kryn shields, it could also interfere with their communication networks. This discovery opened up new possibilities. If deployed strategically, it could cripple the Kryn's ability to coordinate attacks, giving humanity a critical advantage. Excited by the findings, Alex contacted Rachel immediately. When she answered, her voice was strained, but she listened intently as he explained the implications. "This changes everything," Rachel said after a pause. "If we can disrupt their communications, we might be able to divide their forces. It's exactly what we need." "There's a catch," Alex admitted. "We haven't tested it on an actual Kryn ship yet. To do that, we'll need to get close, really close." Rachel sighed, understanding the risks involved. "Leave that part to me. I'll find a way." Meanwhile, Liam Dawson and his team prepared for their next mission. Word had reached them about a heavily guarded Kryn mining facility on Mars. This facility wasn't just a supply hub, it was also a relay station for the Empire's communication network. If they could destroy it, they would deal a significant blow to the Kryn's operations across the solar system. Liam gathered his team in a makeshift command center hidden deep within the ruins of an abandoned city. Maps and schematics covered, the walls illuminated by flickering lanterns. Everyone listened intently as Liam outlined the plan. "This won't be easy," he warned. "The Kryn know we've hit them before, so security will be tighter than ever. But if we succeed, we'll cut off their ability to call for reinforcements. That buys us time, and gives Alex and his team a chance to finish their weapon." His words ignited a spark of hope among the group. They knew the dangers, but they also understood the stakes. Failure wasn't an option. Before departing, Liam met briefly with Rachel. She handed him a small device containing encrypted coordinates and intel on the Martian facility. Her expression was grim, but her voice carried unwavering resolve. "Bring this back alive," she said, handing him the device. "Humanity is counting on you." "I won't let you down," Liam promised. The journey to Mars was perilous. The Resistance's spacecraft, patched together from salvaged parts, groaned under the strain of the trip. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. No one spoke much, each person lost in their own thoughts. As they approached the Red Planet, Liam briefed his team one last time. "Remember," he said, his voice firm, "we go in fast, hit hard, and get out. Don't engage unless absolutely necessary. Our goal is the relay station, not glory." When they landed, the landscape was eerily quiet. Dust storms obscured visibility, providing some cover as they made their way toward the facility. Security patrols roamed the perimeter, their movements methodical and precise. Liam led his team through narrow ravines and underground tunnels, avoiding detection at every turn. Reaching the central control room required navigating a maze of corridors patrolled by Kryn drones. Every step felt like walking a tightrope, one wrong move away from disaster. Several times they narrowly avoided being spotted, retreating into shadows or hiding behind crates until the coast was clear. Finally, they reached the relay station. It was a massive structure pulsating with energy. Wires and conduits snaked along the walls, feeding data into a glowing core at the center of the room. Liam motioned for his team to plant explosives strategically, ensuring maximum damage when detonated. As they worked, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Someone or something had triggered the security system. Within seconds, Kryn soldiers flooded the area, weapons drawn. A fierce firefight erupted, forcing Liam's team to split up. Some stayed behind to hold off the enemy, buying time for the others to complete the mission. One by one, members of the team fell. Bullets whizzed past, explosions rocked the walls, and the air filled with shouts and screams. Despite the chaos, Liam kept moving forward, determined to finish the job. He reached the core just as the last of his teammates collapsed, their sacrifice ensuring he could reach the final objective. With trembling hands, Liam activated the detonator. The countdown began, a mere 30 seconds before the entire facility would be obliterated. As he turned to leave, a Kryn soldier blocked his path, weapon raised. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Then, with a roar of defiance, Liam charged forward, tackling the alien and knocking him aside. He sprinted toward the exit, dodging blasts and debris as the facility began to collapse around him. Just as he reached the surface, the explosion shook the ground, sending a shockwave rippling outward. Flames lit up the Martian sky, illuminating the desolate landscape. Exhausted and battered, Liam limped back to the rendezvous point, where the remaining members of his team waited anxiously. They cheered when they saw him, relief washing over their faces. Though many had fallen, their mission had succeeded. The relay station was gone, and with it, the Kryn's ability to communicate effectively across vast distances. Back on Earth, Alex received confirmation of the mission's success. He allowed himself a brief moment of celebration, though the cost weighed heavily on him. Another wave of grief washed over him as he thought of those who had given their lives. Yet he reminded himself why they had fought, to give humanity a fighting chance. Rachel, too, felt a mix of emotions. She mourned the loss of brave men and women but took solace in knowing their sacrifices hadn't been in vain. With the Kryn's communication network weakened, the Resistance gained precious time to regroup and prepare for the battles ahead. But the war was far from over. The Kryn's wrath would only grow fiercer, and humanity's resilience would be tested like never before. Still, amidst the devastation, a fragile sense of hope endured. People continued to fight, not just for survival, but for the belief that they deserved a future free from tyranny. And as long as even a single person stood against the Empire, humanity's flame of defiance would continue to burn. The destruction of the Martian relay station marked a turning point in humanity's fight against the Kryn Dominion. For the first time, the invaders seemed less coordinated, their attacks sporadic and disjointed. The Resistance capitalized on this newfound advantage, launching counteroffensives across Earth and beyond. Yet, despite these small victories, the cost of war continued to mount. Billions were dead, cities lay in ruins, and the planet itself was on the brink of ecological collapse. Humanity had struck a blow against the Kryn, but the Empire's response loomed like a storm cloud over the horizon. Alex Carter returned to his lab with renewed focus. The success of Liam's mission proved that their efforts mattered, even if progress felt painfully slow. He worked tirelessly alongside Mia Torres, refining the prototype weapon that could disable Kryn shields. Each day brought new challenges. Components overheated, frequencies destabilized, but Alex refused to give up. He often thought about Sarah, imagining how proud she would be of what they were accomplishing. Her memory drove him forward, pushing him to work harder than ever before. Mia shared his determination, though her optimism wavered at times. She missed her family, who had been caught in one of the Kryn's early bombardments. Their loss haunted her, but she buried her grief beneath layers of resolve. Together, she and Alex tested dozens of iterations of the weapon, making incremental improvements until it was finally ready for field deployment. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than anything humanity had managed so far. "We did it," Mia said softly as they powered down the machine after its final test. Her voice carried both relief and exhaustion. "For now," Alex replied, leaning back in his chair. "But this is just the beginning." Rachel Monroe stood in the dimly lit command center of the United Nations Space Council, staring at a holographic map of Earth. The once vibrant blue and green globe now looked scarred and broken, dotted with red markers indicating areas under Kryn control. Despite the grim picture, Rachel felt a flicker of hope. The Resistance was growing stronger, fueled by the courage of ordinary people rising up to defend their homes. She had spent weeks coordinating efforts to distribute the new weapons developed by Alex and Mia. Resistance cells worldwide received shipments of the compact devices along with training manuals on how to use them effectively. Reports poured in from fighters on the front lines describing successful ambushes where the weapons had turned the tide of battle. For the first time, humanity had a tool capable of evening the odds, if only slightly. Still, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was coming. The Kryn hadn't retaliated in full force since the relay station's destruction, which worried her. They were biding their time, regrouping, and planning something catastrophic. She knew the Empire wouldn't tolerate defiance for long. Her fears deepened when Senator Gregory Hayes approached her during a late-night meeting. His betrayal still weighed heavily on her conscience, but she had reluctantly allowed him to continue feeding false information to the Kryn. So far, his double-agent role seemed to be working. The Kryn appeared confused by contradictory reports about human defenses, but Hayes looked uneasy, his usual composure replaced by visible anxiety. "They're on to me," he confessed in a low voice, glancing around to ensure no one else was listening. "I don't know how much longer I can keep this up." Rachel studied him carefully, torn between anger and pity. "You knew the risks when you agreed to help," she reminded him sharply. "If you stop now, everything we've worked for falls apart." "I'm not saying I'll quit," Hayes snapped, his voice trembling. "But you need to prepare for the worst. When they find out, they'll come for all of us." Rachel clenched her fists, frustration bubbling inside her. Hayes was right. They couldn't rely on deception forever. The Resistance needed a plan to withstand whatever the Kryn threw at them next. "Then make sure your next report buys us more time," she said firmly. "And leave the rest to us." Liam Dawson sat alone in a makeshift shelter on the outskirts of what used to be Chicago. The city was unrecognizable now, reduced to rubble and ash. Fires smoldered in the distance, casting an orange glow over the desolate landscape. He stared at the horizon, replaying the events on Mars in his mind. The faces of his fallen teammates lingered there, their voices echoing in his thoughts. He wished he could forget, but the weight of leadership demanded he remember. To honor their sacrifices by ensuring they hadn't died in vain. His communicator buzzed, pulling him from his reverie. It was Rachel calling with urgent news. "The Kryn are mobilizing," she said without preamble. "We intercepted transmissions suggesting they're planning a massive assault. They're targeting key resistance strongholds." Liam's heart sank. "Where?" "Everywhere," Rachel replied grimly. "They're hitting multiple locations simultaneously. Europe, Asia, Africa, South America. We don't have the resources to defend all of them." "Then we prioritize," Liam said, his tone firm. "Tell me where we stand the best chance of holding them off." Rachel hesitated before answering. "There's a facility in Australia, a bunker designed to withstand nuclear attacks. If we can get enough people there, we might be able to fortify it and hold out until reinforcements arrive." "Reinforcements?" Liam asked skeptically. "From where?" "From wherever we can muster them," Rachel admitted. "It's risky, but it's our only shot." Liam nodded, already formulating a plan. "Send me the coordinates. I'll rally whoever I can and meet you there." The days that followed were chaotic. Refugees streamed toward the Australian bunker, guided by resistance fighters risking their lives to protect civilians. Among them was Alex Carter, who insisted on joining the effort despite Rachel's protests. "You're too valuable here," she argued, gripping his arm tightly. "What happens if something goes wrong and we lose you? What happens if I stay behind and do nothing?" Alex countered, his voice steady. "This isn't just your fight anymore, Rachel, it's all of ours." Reluctantly, she let him go, knowing he was right. Alex joined a convoy heading south, carrying crates of the newly developed weapons. Along the way, they encountered Kryn patrols, forcing them to take detours through treacherous terrain. Supplies dwindled, and tempers flared, but they pressed, undriven by the knowledge that failure meant annihilation. When they reached the bunker, the scene was overwhelming. Thousands of survivors crowded outside, desperate for shelter. Inside, engineers and soldiers worked non-stop to reinforce walls and set up defenses. The air buzzed with tension as everyone braced for the inevitable attack. Liam arrived shortly after, leading a ragtag group of guerrilla fighters. His face was gaunt, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep, but his presence inspired confidence. He immediately took charge, organizing teams to patrol the perimeter and coordinate supply distribution. Every decision he made was calculated, every order precise. As night fell, the sky lit up with streaks of fire. The Kryn fleet descended like a swarm of locusts, unleashing devastating barrages on nearby towns. Explosions shook the ground, rattling. The bunkers reinforced walls. Inside, children cried while adults whispered prayers, clinging to loved ones as the world outside crumbled. Liam stood at the entrance, watching the carnage unfold. He clenched his fists, rage burning in his chest. These invaders had taken everything from him: his home, his family, his peace of mind. And yet here he was, still standing, still fighting. He vowed silently that he would never kneel, no matter the cost. Behind him, Alex adjusted the settings on one of the prototype weapons, preparing it for action. Beside him, Mia checked ammunition supplies, her hands steady despite the chaos around them. Rachel moved among the crowd, offering words of encouragement and reassurance. Together, they formed the backbone of humanity's last stand. The Kryn's assault intensified as dawn approached. Waves of alien soldiers advanced on the bunker, their movements mechanical and relentless. Resistance fighters fired back with everything they had, using the new weapons to devastating effect. For the first time, the Kryn faltered, their shields flickering and failing under the barrage of energy pulses. But the victory was short-lived. Reinforcements arrived, overwhelming the defenders. The bunker's outer defenses began to crumble and panic spread among the survivors. Liam shouted orders, rallying his team to hold the line. Alex and Mia worked side by side, deploying the weapons strategically to maximize their impact. Rachel coordinated evacuations, ensuring as many civilians as possible escaped through hidden tunnels. By sunrise, the bunker was overrun. Bodies littered the battlefield, both human and alien. Smoke filled the air, choking those who remained. Yet amidst the devastation, a spark of defiance endured. Though the facility had fallen, the resistance had inflicted heavy losses on the Kryn, proving that humanity could still fight, even when all hope seemed lost. As the survivors regrouped, in the wilderness, battered but unbroken, Liam addressed them with quiet determination. "They think they've won," he said, his voice steady despite the ache in his heart. "But they haven't. As long as we're alive, we'll keep fighting. We'll take back what's ours." His words resonated deeply, reigniting a sense of purpose among the weary fighters. They had lost the battle, but the war was far from over. Humanity's flame of resilience burned brighter than ever, fueled by the belief that freedom was worth any sacrifice.